How much XRP do I need? That is the single most common question I get asked across every platform, and I have spent enough time in this space now to recognize that the question itself is usually wrong. Because the way most people ask it, looking for a specific magic number that guarantees an outcome, fundamentally misunderstands how positioning actually works. The person asking, how much XRP do I need for $1 million is looking for a formula. But the correct framework has almost nothing to do with a specific number and almost everything to do with a specific process, your capacity, your timeline, your risk tolerance, your goal structure, your exit plan. When you apply that framework honestly to your own situation, the number you need stops being a mystery and becomes a calculation you can actually run. Today, I'm going to give you the complete framework for determining your personal XRP target, not the number that sounds impressive on social media. The number that matches your actual situation. I'll walk you through how to calculate your capacity honestly, how to match your target to your timeline, how to build an exit plan that captures value without selling too early or holding too long, and why the single biggest predictor of whether you reach your target is not the number you pick, but the behaviors you execute between now and then. Because when we finish, you'll have a specific number that's yours, not borrowed from a YouTuber, not copied from someone else's portfolio, yours, based on your actual financial reality and your actual goals. This is not financial advice. I am sharing publicly available information for educational purposes. Always do your own research. Before we get into it, drop your goal in the comments, not your amount, your actual outcome goal. Extra $10,000 for emergency fund, $100,000 for a house down payment, $500,000 for early retirement, $1 million for generational wealth. I want to see the real spread of what this community is actually trying to achieve, because the goal determines the strategy, and most people have never articulated their goal clearly to themselves. Welcome back. I am the Calm Analyst. Around here, we replace magic numbers with personal frameworks. Today, we're building your individual XRP positioning plan from first principles, capacity, goal, timeline, scenarios, exit rules, and behavioral execution. By the end, the question, how much XRP do I need, will have your answer, not someone else's. Let's get into it. Let me start with the fundamental reframe, because the question as commonly asked produces bad answers. How much XRP do I need assumes a deterministic relationship between tokens held and outcomes achieved, as if there's some magic number that once reached guarantees success. That framing is broken because it ignores the three variables that actually determine outcomes: the price XRP reaches, the time horizon required, and your ability to execute the plan without abandoning it. The correct question is, given my financial capacity, my time horizon, and my goal, what XRP position can I realistically accumulate and hold through to completion? That question has a specific answer for every individual. It's not the same answer for a 25-year-old with 40 years of accumulation ahead as it is for a 55-year-old with 10 years before retirement. It's not the same for someone with $500 monthly discretionary income as someone with $5,000. It's not the same for someone targeting $50,000 for a car as someone targeting $2 million for generational wealth. The magic number approach tells everyone the same answer. The framework approach tells each person their specific answer, and the specific answer is the one that actually guides good decisions. If the reframe from magic number to personal framework just clarified what you've been missing, smash that like button, because the rest of this video only works if you're ready to build your own answer rather than looking for someone else's. Now let me walk you through the capacity calculation, because this is where 80% of bad positioning decisions start. Capacity is not how much money you want to invest. It's how much you can invest without compromising your financial stability or causing yourself significant stress if the investment goes to zero. Start with your net after-tax income. Subtract essential expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments. What remains is your discretionary income. From that discretionary income, deduct three essential categories before any crypto allocation. First, emergency fund contribution, until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in a liquid account. Second, retirement account contributions up to any employer match and ideally up to the legal maximum. Third, high-interest debt paydown. Credit card debt at 20% interest is guaranteed to destroy wealth faster than any crypto appreciation can build it. After those priorities are funded, whatever remains is your actual crypto capacity. And most people, when they do this calculation honestly, find that their capacity is smaller than they assumed, but more sustainable than they feared. For a typical middle-class American household, the honest crypto capacity might be $100 to $500 per month. For higher earners, it might be $1,000 to $5,000 per month. For someone just starting their career with minimal savings, it might be $25 to $100 per month. None of those numbers are bad. All of them can produce meaningful positions over sufficient time horizons. The key is starting with the honest number and building from there rather than overcommitting based on fantasy numbers and then abandoning the plan when the real financial pressure arrives. Now let me show you how capacity translates to position size over time. Because the math here is more powerful than most people realize. At $100 per month for 3 years at an average XRP price of $1.50, you accumulate approximately 2,400 XRP. That's a top 10% position globally for a total commitment of $3,600. At $250 per month for 5 years at the same average price, you accumulate 10,000 XRP. Top 4% globally for a commitment of $15,000. At $500 per month for 5 years, you accumulate 20,000 XRP. Top 2% globally for a commitment of $30,000. At $1,000 per month for 5 years, you accumulate 40,000 XRP. Approaching top 1% for a commitment of $60,000. These numbers demonstrate something important. Reaching significant tier positions doesn't require huge lump sum investments. It requires modest, consistent contributions over multi-year periods. The people who reach these tiers are not usually the ones who made one perfectly timed large purchase. They're the ones who bought smaller amounts consistently through every market condition. And the tier positions translate to real outcomes at reasonable price targets. 10,000 XRP at Standard Chartered's 2030 target of $28 is $280,000 from $15,000 invested. 20,000 XRP at the same target is $560,000 from $30,000 invested. These are outstanding outcomes that don't require extreme price scenarios. They require consistency and patience. Comment below, based on your honest capacity, which monthly contribution level is realistic for you? Type $100, $250, $500, $1,000, or other with your actual number. Because knowing your realistic contribution is the foundation for calculating your realistic target. Now let me address goal setting. Because vague goals produce vague results. Make money is not a goal. Life-changing gains is not a goal. These are aspirations. Goals are specific, measurable, and tied to concrete outcomes you can visualize. Good goals look like accumulate 5,000 XRP by age 40 to have an additional retirement asset that, at $10 per token, provides $50,000 in supplemental retirement income. Or build a 15,000 XRP position over 7 years so that at 28 per token, I can pay off my remaining mortgage balance of $400,000 in 2033. Or contribute $200 monthly to XRP accumulation so that at any price above $5, my position funds my daughter's college education. Each of these goals has specific numbers, specific time horizons, specific outcomes, and specific decisions that follow from reaching them. The goal determines the position size. The position size determines the contribution level. The contribution level determines the timeline. And the timeline determines how you behave between now and completion. Without a specific goal, you can't make any of these decisions rationally. You just hold whatever amount you happen to accumulate and react emotionally to price movements. That's not a plan. That's hoping. And hoping is the worst investment strategy in history. Subscribe right now, hit the bell, drop A in the comments, because the frameworks that work require consistent reinforcement through market volatility, and this channel exists to provide that reinforcement as catalysts materialize. Now the exit plan, because knowing when to sell is as important as knowing how much to buy. Most XRP holders have no exit plan. They accumulate, they hold, they tell themselves they'll know when to sell. Then the price reaches levels where they could realize substantial gains, and emotional attachment makes them hold longer. Then the market cycles and their gains evaporate. This pattern has destroyed more crypto wealth than any single market crash. The solution is a rule-based exit plan set before emotions enter the equation. Specific price levels, specific percentages of your position, written down, followed mechanically. A reasonable framework. Take 10% of your position at your first 2x. Take another 15% at your 4x. Take another 20% at your 7x. Take another 20% at your 10x. Hold the remaining 35% for the long-term scenarios. For someone with a cost basis of $1.50, this means taking 10% at $3, 15% at $6, 20% at $10.50, 20% at $15, and holding 35% through whatever comes above $15. The benefits of this approach are substantial. You realize gains at reasonable levels without committing to sell everything at any single price. You maintain exposure to higher scenarios if they materialize. You're never selling out of fear or holding out of greed. The decisions are made before the emotions arrive, so the emotions don't derail the plan. The specific numbers should match your goals. Someone targeting supplemental retirement income might take more aggressively early to lock in reliable outcomes. Someone targeting generational wealth might hold more through the middle levels to capture potential extreme scenarios. The template adjusts. The discipline doesn't. Without an exit plan, you're not investing. You're speculating with unlimited downside on the upside. That's not a framework, that's a disaster waiting to unfold. Now let me address the scenarios that each exit level targets, because understanding the probability of each scenario calibrates your framework. Standard Chartered's base case of 2 at 80 for 2026 is approximately a 90% gain from current prices. If you have a rule to take 10% at $3, that rule captures Standard Chartered's base case if it materializes. Reasonable probability, meaningful profit realization. Their bull case of $8 is approximately a 444% gain. Taking 15% at $6 to $8 captures this scenario. Less probable than the base case, but still within documented institutional projections. Substantial profit realization. Their 2030 target of $28 is approximately 1D 800% gain. Taking 20% at $10 to $15 captures significant value on the way to this target. This is the upper range of credible multi-year institutional projections. Above $28, you're in the aggressive scenarios that depend on outcomes no analyst currently models. The tokenization wave reaching full scale. Central bank reserve adoption. AI agent economy at massive scale. Possible, but uncertain. The final 35% held position captures these scenarios if they materialize while not requiring them to produce successful outcomes. At each level, you're making rational decisions based on realistic probabilities, not trying to time perfect tops, not holding through inevitable corrections, just systematically capturing value as the infrastructure thesis plays out on its timeline. Let me now address the behavioral execution, because the best framework fails if the behavior doesn't match. Behavioral execution means doing what the framework says, even when emotions push you the other way. That's harder than it sounds. When XRP rallies to $3, the framework says take 10%, but greed says hold everything for higher prices. When XRP pulls back to 120 from 150, the framework says keep contributing your monthly amount, but fear says stop until the price stabilizes. The framework works if you follow it. The framework fails if emotions override it. The specific behaviors that lead to execution success. Automate your monthly contributions so you don't have to make a fresh decision each month. Write down your exit rules before the market moves so you can't change them during volatility. Limit your exposure to price-focused content during significant market movements. Review your plan quarterly rather than daily. And most importantly, don't compare your position to anyone else's because their situation isn't yours. The behaviors that destroy execution: checking the price multiple times per day, reading price prediction content that anchors you to numbers outside your framework, selling during drawdowns out of fear, over-contributing during rallies out of greed, comparing your portfolio to larger holders on social media, changing your exit rules during emotional moments. Discipline is not motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline is systems that operate when motivation is absent. The calm investor builds systems that don't require them to be emotionally perfect at every moment. The systems do the work. The investor just executes. Let me leave you with this. The question isn't how much XRP you need. The question is, what plan can you execute given your capacity, timeline, and goals? Run the calculation honestly. Your real monthly contribution capacity after priorities. Your real timeline of 3, 5, or 10 years. Your real goal measured in specific outcome dollars. Those three numbers determine your XRP target, and the target you calculate is achievable if you execute consistently. Most people's honest calculation produces targets between 2,000 XRP and 20,000 XRP, positions that place them in the top 10% or top 2% of all XRP holders globally. From commitments between $3,000 and $30,000 spread across 3 to 7 years. Those positions at documented analyst targets produce outcomes between $30,000 and $560,000. Life-changing for most households, without requiring any extreme price scenarios, without requiring perfect timing, without requiring luck. What they require is consistent contribution, honest capacity, reasonable goals, rule-based exit planning, and behavioral execution through multiple market cycles. That's the framework. It's boring. It works. And boring that works beats exciting that doesn't every single time. The people who reach meaningful XRP positions are not the ones asking how much XRP they need. They're the ones who built a plan, executed it consistently, and arrived at the outcome their framework produced. The framework came first, the amount came second, and the outcome followed both. Price is a distraction. Value is the reality. Structure is what matters. And the structure that produces realized wealth from XRP holdings is not the number of tokens. It's the process of accumulating and holding through disciplined framework execution. The tokens are just the scoreboard. The framework is the game. In a market fueled by emotion and noise, we thrive on data and composure. Remember, haste leads to loss, while calm analysis leads to victory. Comment "calm analyst" below and share your honest framework, your monthly contribution, your timeline, and your goal outcome. Not to compare against others, to commit it to the community. Because writing it down and sharing it is the first step in actually executing it. The calm investor builds their plan in public and executes it with discipline. And the community that supports them through the execution is the community that benefits together when the thesis plays out. Like, subscribe, notifications on. I'll see you in the next one. Stay patient, stay rational, and as we always do, we don't wait for the future, we plan for it. Peace.